Welcome to the first grade presentation for McNair Discovery Learning Academy Curriculum Night. Let's start by meeting the first grade teachers. On our first grade teacher team, we have Mrs. Bishop, Miss Hardaway, Miss Waller, and Miss Wilson. A typical day in a first grade classroom. The students arrive in our classroom at around 7:10, and from 7:10 to 7:30, they eat their breakfast and go through their morning routine. 7:30 to 8 o'clock is our intervention block, which is when students work on just right for me assignments on their own in small groups or meet with the teacher for some instructional time. At 8, we start our ELA or reading and writing block, which goes until 9:30 and is when we work on our first grade standards as well as have guided reading at a just right for me level for each of the students. From 9:30 to 10 is social studies and 10:05 to 10:30 is science. 10:40 to 11:10 is lunch and 11:15 to 11:30 is recess. 11:45 to 12:25 is specials. However, on Tuesday, our specials are extended and we have a very shortened math block. And on Wednesdays, we don't have specials and have an extended math block. Our math block is from 12:30 to 1:50. We work on our first grade standards as well as have guided math at a just right for me level for the students. And dismissal begins at 1:50. Now, we do have some whole class bathroom breaks. Those times vary by class, but there are generally a few throughout the day. Let's talk about what we're learning in each of our subjects. In English Language Arts, which is our reading and writing block, we start out with a unit called Here We Go Rituals and Routine, and we ask and answer questions about key details in both fiction and nonfiction texts. In Unit 2, Telling Our Stories, we work on retelling stories using key details and the central message for our fiction text and identifying the main topic and key details in nonfiction texts. And we write using sequencing of events. In Unit 3, Making Connections, we compare and contrast within stories, identify differences between fiction and nonfiction texts, write informative and explanatory pieces, use standard English grammar and usage in speaking and writing. In Unit 4, This and That, we continue identifying differences between fiction and nonfiction texts, identify text features, write opinion pieces, and use words with nuance in descriptions. In Unit 5, Going Places, we compare and contrast stories, ask and answer questions to find meaning, write narratives, use simple and compound sentences, use a variety of sentence types, including declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory. In Unit 6, Wonderful World, we identify feeling words in poetry, ask and answer questions to clarify meaning, write narratives and poems, describe with clarity, and use standard English grammar and usage. Writing, which is included in our ELA, involves asking and answering questions using complete sentences, narrative writing using sequencing of events, writing informative and explanatory pieces using standard English grammar and usage, writing opinion pieces using words with nuance, writing narratives using simple and compound sentences and a variety of sentence types, declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory, and writing narratives and poetry using feeling words, descriptions for clarity, and standard English grammar and usage. In social studies, our first unit is on Earth's topography. We learn to locate the continents and oceans, and we also identify and describe types of landforms. In Unit 2, Bringing History to Life, we learn about the contributions of Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Meriwether Lewis, William Clark, Sacagawea, Theodore Roosevelt, George Washington Carver, and Ruby Bridges. We describe how their lifetime was similar and different to our lives today. In Unit 3, we talk about positive character traits and patriotism. We describe how the historical figures from the last unit display positive character traits such as fairness, respect for others, respect for the environment, courage, equality, tolerance, perseverance, and commitment. We also explore the concept of patriotism through song. We end the year in Unit 4 with understanding economics, and we learn how people earn income and also that people make choices of how to save and spend their money. In science, we're learning about weather and seasons. We learn about weather data, weather patterns, and seasonal patterns of change. Our next unit is light and sound, and we use light and sound to communicate over distance. In Unit 3, magnets, we learn about the effects of magnets on other magnets and on other objects while investigating how magnets attract and repel. Unit 4 is the characteristics of plants, where we learn the basic needs of plants, plant parts, and things about plants. In Unit 5, basic needs of animals, and our review and extension, we learn the basic needs of animals compared to that of plants, and review everything we've learned this year in one final culminating project. Math this year is jam-packed. In Unit 1, we start out by creating routines using data. We work on counting to 120, reading and writing numerals, organizing and interpreting data in various ways. We focus on tally charts and bar graphs. In Unit 2, base 10 number sense and understanding place value, we continue to count within 120 and read and write numerals. And we learn about two-digit numbers as groups of 10 and 1s and continue working with graphs. In Unit 3, operations and algebraic thinking, we use addition and subtraction within 20 to solve word problems. We learn about the commutative property, associative property, subtraction as an unknown addend, and we use various strategies to add and subtract while continuing to work with graphs. In Unit 4, understanding shapes and fractions, we partition circles and rectangles into 2 and 4 equal shares and use appropriate vocabulary, halves, fourths, and quarters, and continue to work with graphs. In Unit 5, applying place value to number operations, we add within 100, including 2-digit to 1-digit, and continue working with graphs. In Unit 6, we finish out the year with sorting, comparing, and ordering, where we learn about the length of objects and use objects to measure with. We also tell time to the hour and half hour on analog and digital clocks and continue working with graphs. So that's what we're learning this year. And you're probably wondering, well, how are we going to get our grades this year? Because in first grade, we start having those regular A, B, C, D, F grades. So here is our grading protocol for the 2021-2022 school year. Formative and diagnostic assessments are worth 0% of the grade. These are like the unit pre-assessments and some other general assessments that we use to see how students are doing with things before we start a unit so that we know where to start if we need to step back and start with reviewing some prerequisite skills, or if we're ready to just jump right in or even extend past our first grade standards. Our assessment tasks, which are skills and homework, are worth 25% of our grade. Classwork, which can be guided, independent, or group practice, is worth 45% of the grade. And assessments of learning, that's quizzes, tests, and big projects, are worth 30% of the grade. Now, there are always questions about things, so it's important to know how to communicate with us. There are many ways in which we will communicate with you and you can communicate with us, including email. Our emails are listed on this slide. Please note that in between our first and last names, there is an underscore. You can also communicate with us via phone call by calling the school and having them transfer you down to our classroom, or communicate with us via Class Dojo. Some teachers have some additional communication methods that they use that you are also welcome to use. School-wide expectations. Part of first grade is learning how we act at school and how to be a good student. At McNair Discovery Learning Academy, we are soaring thoroughbreds, and we soar by being safety first, taking ownership, showing academic excellence, and respect for self and others. Throughout the building, we have our SOAR expectations, as well as in our classroom. The school-wide expectations for the cafeteria, hallway, school bus, restroom, and playground are shown here. please feel free to pause the video to take an in-depth look. In general, we expect students to be safety first by remaining in their assigned area or where they belong and sitting in a safe manner and keeping things cleaned up and listening to directions, especially when they're directions for keeping us safe. We show ownership by being in control of our own body and keeping our hands and feet to self and our voice at an appropriate level for where we are. We also take ownership of our things and our trash. We show academic excellence, not just in the classroom by doing our best on our assignments, but also by doing things like eating with proper etiquette in the cafeteria or if we're eating in the classroom, to not make a big mess and to not be eating in a way that others find gross. We also show academic excellence by keeping our voices at code 0 or not talking in the hallways and keeping track of our things. We show respect for self and others by doing things like waiting our turn, keeping our hands and feet to self, respecting other people's privacy in the bathroom by not looking under the stalls or over at people when they're at the urinal, and by using kind words. So again, these are our school-wide expectations, and in the classroom, students are also expected to show safety first, ownership, academic excellence, and respect for self and others. And there are specific routines and procedures in each of our classrooms. Some resources commonly used in the first grade are iReady, which is a website that gives a diagnostic test to see where students are at so that it can give them games and assignments that are tailored just to them to help them maximize their learning. There will sometimes be teacher assigned things on there as well that have to do with our first grade standards. We also use ABCYA and BrainPop Junior frequently. This has been a lot of information, and I'm sure you still have some questions. So if you have questions, please feel free to contact your child's teacher. If you need to back the video up to check what your child's teacher's email address is, it was given previously in this presentation. With that, let's have an awesome first grade year. Thank you for joining us for the first grade presentation for McNair Discovery Learning Curriculum Night 2021.